Hello friends, it's Katie back with another episode of my vlog. And as I promised in a previous vlog episode, today is the first in what I hope becomes a series of Shibori experiments. Normally when I do a tutorial video, I'm sharing a technique or something that I've figured out and I've done a whole bunch of times. And so I know how it's going to turn out before I actually get to the end of the process. But a lot of my studio work isn't like that. And instead it is messing around and trying things that I have never done before. And so I thought, okay, well, instead of doing that off camera, why don't I try wearing a camera? And so I got a GoPro. I actually got it last year and I've been playing around with it. And what I am going to do is take you guys with me on my next Shibori experiment today. I got a head mount for the GoPro, so I'm actually going to be wearing it like right here. So it's going to see my point of view while I'm doing this Shibori experiment and trying something new that I've never done before and taking you guys along for the ride to see what happens and how it turns out. So let's jump into it right now. All right, you guys, for today's Shibori experiment, I am using a technique that I've done a bunch of times, but a dye color that I've never used. So my buddy Steve saw this teeth design that I kept doing for masks that was so popular last summer, and he asked me if I could make him curtains in the same pattern, but instead of the indigo color, what he wants is red, specifically crimson. So I am going with a dye which is called Chinese Red from Dharma Trading Company, and I've got my fabric all ready to go. This is what the Shibori piece tied up looks like that will produce this result. Actually, I could line it up here. The stitched parts here translate into these teeth rows, and then these parts here are where the rubber bands are. So I have prepped 5 panels of this fabric. Each one is like a 1 yard piece of fabric. And I've spent a bunch of time hand stitching all of these little pleated sections and then gathering everything together. So this is now ready to be dyed. So yeah, I'm super excited to see how this turns out. I am a little bit nervous because if I don't get this right, what we're going to wind up with is something that looks like this but is pink instead of red. Steve did say he was okay with pink, but he wants red. So hopefully, fingers crossed for this Shibori experiment, that we're going to actually get red out of this stuff. So let's get started. Just gonna walk into the other room instead of cutting the video right here. I am gonna have Sean editing my video for me though, so you guys get a sneak peek of my messy basement here, but that's okay. There's my dye area over there. Here's my utility sink. First things first, we gotta get this fabric wet. So I love these tubs for storage, but also because I can use them for any amount of water or dye work or whatever. And they're great. So I don't need to fill the thing up all the way. I'm just gonna wait for it to fill up part way and then kind of smoosh the fabric down into it because this stuff works on wet fabric. I've never tried dyeing dry fabric before, but I imagine it's not gonna work very well at all. First step for all of my dye processes is wet the fabric. Splash the water around a little bit. Hopefully I didn't get on the lens of the GoPro. I'm wearing the GoPro on my head. It's this really ridiculous looking thing. But hopefully you guys can see all the detail of what I'm seeing right now. All right, that looks good. So we'll get that ready. Oops, now my hands are all wet. That's no good. Studio towel on the floor. It's okay, I know that one's clean, so. All right, we are ready to set up the dye situation here. Oop, see? I don't have my dust mask on and I had to put it on over this GoPro. That's not gonna work very well. So I think I gotta pause this video and then be right back. All right, I'm back. And I totally sound different because I'm wearing an N95 dust mask because the dye that I use comes in a powder form and it goes everywhere. So this is Dharma Trading Company's fiber reactive dye. Chinese red. There it is. So I'm just gonna gently pour this in here and hope it doesn't make too much of a cloud. And I always lid my container before I throw it away because that means I'm not getting more dye particles everywhere. As you can see, it's a very strong red dye. So we're gonna put that into this container and then get rid of those because I don't need them. I'm gonna remember to put my gloves on so I don't get my hands all red. And then basically it's a 3-part thing to set up this dye. We're gonna make a paste. This is just some warm water. And then once I've got that mixed, I go for a paste and then go for kind of a slurry, if you will. I don't know if you can see this in the light with the camera angle, but basically the idea is just to get all of that powdered dye dissolved into the water so that it can do its thing. Because obviously if I've got chunks of dye that's not actually dissolved in the water, it is not going to do anything on my fabric. So I'm taking this plastic spoon, I'm going around the bottom of the container, like, you know, baking, right? I'm just like scraping all the dry stuff up off of the bottom of the container to make sure that I really got it. And it looks like a nasty paste after a while. You can't see, but I can see because my angle of my eyes is a little bit lower than the angle of the GoPro, but I can see some dry spots on the bottom. So I'm just gonna keep on working this and stirring it. That's probably really boring to watch. It's a little bit boring to do. I'll admit I'm looking forward to getting to the end of this part and taking my mask off. Boy, I'm tired of wearing masks. How about you guys? I'm still wearing my mask in public everywhere that says a sign that says I have to, but man, I've been totally vaccinated since March and I'm beyond ready for the maskless life. Our Oregon governor said that she's going to reopen everything when we hit 70% of adults vaccinated, which, ugh, we are still a ways away from that. They're predicting June 24th now, but man, I just want to go see a movie at my favorite movie theaters. I'll be real. That's my like top priority. I want to go see some live music too, but I have been missing movies. All right, so this is pretty well mixed. So I'm just going to put a little bit more water in here, kind of extend it, and just give myself a little more here to work with. And so again, I'm trying to keep my stirs small, keep my splashes down. I don't really want to get red dye everywhere. This is the junky part of my basement. So, you know, this table is covered with paint and dings from other things, and the floor is stained concrete. So, you know, if I do spill this, it's not the end of the world, but I'm trying not to make a giant mess if I can help it. So let's get this nice and dissolved. I can't feel anything else at the bottom of this container anymore at this point, but let's give it a couple more stirs, get this kind of stuff off the sides. Again, it's, you know, just trying to get everything dissolved in, because every little crystal of dye that doesn't get dissolved into the water is just, you know, a lighter color for my finished product. So, but looking good here, getting it all kind of there. So, all right, I think we're ready to go into the actual dye vat. So this is going to be my dye vat today. It's just a 5-gallon bucket with 4.5 gallons of water in it. And I'm going to pour that red dye in, swoop that, and make sure I'm getting everything out of there. Yep, I don't see any unmixed trapped on the bottom. So that's great. We're done with this guy. I'll put him, woo, not in that sink. Look at that, I came flying over here thinking this sink was empty. This sink is totally not empty. Ugh. This sink has a bunch of fabric in it. I'll take that out. I will rinse these gloves and make sure I do not have red dye on the gloves because I'm going to touch the fabric in just a minute here. Wow, look at that chemical reaction. How cool is that? All right, bigger, longer stir stick. I'm going to stir this really well to make sure that that dye mix that I put in is nice and incorporated into the water. Boy, it sure looks like a good mix. Look at that color. I love this frothy pink color on top. It's wild. All right. So next step after mixing the dye in is we need to put a whole bunch of salt, and it has to be non-iodized salt. You can buy dyeing salt from places online, or you can just use pickling salt because that doesn't have iodine in it. And so that's what I've done, and I measured out my salt amount, and we're going to pour that in and get it nice and mixed because again, I don't want a bunch of solids on the bottom here. Whew. I'm getting hot in this mask. Almost done mixing dusty things, so whew. This looks like a borscht or something that I'm making, I guess. I don't know. Wish I had a better stir stick. This is just a dowel. I have a really killer stir stick that's like a long paint stir stick that I use for the indigo vat, but I don't want to mess it up by putting any other colors of dye on it. So I'm using this dowel instead, which is kind of a second best, but it'll work for our purposes, my purposes. I don't know why I'm speaking in plural. I guess because I'm taking you guys on this ride with me, so it is kind of a we thing. So lots of stirring. There's going to be a lot of stirring involved with this whole process. So basically I'm going to show you guys how I set this up, and then once I get to the part where I'm just going to be endlessly stirring, we'll kind of have a little cut in the magic of video time warp and take us into the future. This feels good though. I can't feel like any massive quantity of salt at the bottom of the container or anything, so that's good. All right. Okay, and then the last powdery thing is I have some, excuse me. I have some soda ash, which is the fixer for the dye, and that is right here. And I need to mix that with some water so that in about 20 minutes, we're gonna add it to that dye bath. But for right now, I'm just gonna make its little slurry with some water. I can definitely feel this is a huge clump on the bottom. So I'm just gonna get all my different powder elements all nice and dissolved and stirred in. And then I don't have to worry about a bunch of dust particles flying around in the air anymore. And I'll be able to take this mask off and talk a little bit more freely. Maybe it's the breathing. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be sitting here complaining about masks after the drama and politics of masks over the last year, but whew, this definitely heated up. I can feel it's doing its chemical reaction in here. All right, that is all stirred up. All right, you guys, it is my favorite time, which is time to dye. So I'm gonna take each of these things out of this thing and squeeze the excess water out of them, and then set them on the table really quickly just so I can put all 5 in together. It's not gonna matter that much in terms of the time difference between putting these in, but I do like to be consistent, and I'm hoping for consistent results across all 5 pieces of fabric. So we will put them all in together. Again, you want them to be wet, but they don't need to have an excess amount of water in them. So we'll put that there. Get this last one squoze out, get my floor nice and wet so it's extra slippery when I come to do the next step. That's what studio towels are for though, right? Just throw them down on the floor. My favorite. All right. Just give this one last stir, make sure I don't have a bunch of salt just sitting on the bottom. Yeah, looking good. All right, so we're gonna put everybody into the dye together, and then I'm just going to be stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring. You can also do this in a washing machine. Works better with the top loader, and I don't have one of those. I also would want a second washing machine that was the dye washing machine if I was gonna do it that way. But you can do it in a washing machine, which does make this part a lot easier, because obviously if you do it in a washing machine, the washing machine is going to do the stirring for you. I have an overly full container here. I probably should not have put quite this much liquid in here, but holy smokes, look already at what that color is looking like on the fabric. Now, if I took this out right now, that would just wash right out. The fabric has to be in contact with the dye for a while. In fact, I believe my next step here is 20 minutes. So let's set a timer. I'll do 15 and then another 5. So the whole deal is the length of time that the fabric is in the dye and the other agents that are in there with the dye. Again, the soda ash that I'm gonna put in at the next step is what is called a fixer. And so it basically is like a glue that's helping the dye attach to the fabric fibers. You can pre-soak your fabric in a soda ash solution if you want to, and then apply dye directly to the surface of the fabric, like with a squirt bottle or something, like if you're doing a tie-dye thing with multiple colors. Obviously, since I am doing one color dye job here, doing a vat dyeing technique made more sense. So when you do vat dyeing, you can dye your fabric and then come back and add the soda ash as the second step. So that is what I'm going to do. So from here on out, it is just a whole lot of stirring. I'm just gonna keep using this stick to manipulate everything that's in this container. I'm gonna keep it moving for about 20 minutes straight. And I think you guys might be bored watching me stir this for 20 minutes. So we'll use the magic of video editing again to time warp you into the future when I'm done with the first round of stirring here. Let's stir. All right, it's been 20 minutes and it is time to start adding in the soda ash. I added in a little bit more water here, so I now have 2.5 cups of this soda ash solution. The instructions from Dharma Trading say that you need to add it really slowly to this mix over the course of 15 minutes. So that's super slow. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give my vat a little stir, and then I'm gonna pull everything kind of over to one side with my stick. And then I'm just gonna pour 1/2 cup down the side that doesn't have my fabric in it and give that a stir, because the idea is that I'm trying to mix the soda ash into the dye and not necessarily have it hit the fabric directly. If you pour it in too quickly, or if you get it right on top of the fabric, what can happen is the fabric, the dye can come out kind of splotchy. So I'm just gonna kind of do this funny thing of adding 1/2 cup of soda ash and then stirring for 3 minutes. And then when my timer goes off, adding another 1/2 cup of soda ash and then stirring for another 3 minutes, and just keep it up that way. And then after I'm done adding all 2.5 cups of that soda ash solution that I made, the next step is just going to be more stirring. I am supposed to keep this thing going for between 30 minutes and an hour of agitation. Again, it doesn't have to be continuous agitation, but I just want to keep it moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause the video again so you guys don't have to sit around watching me stir this thing for an hour and 15 minutes. And then I will cut back in when it is time to take this stuff out of the dye and rinse it out. And don't worry, I'm not just sitting here for an hour stirring. I've got all my other little projects and things that I can work on, and I just, give it a stir every minute and then go back to what I was working on. So not just sitting here stirring for an hour, but there is a lot of stirring involved. So maybe I'll get a big, strong right arm from doing this. So, all right, see you guys in an hour for me and mere seconds for you. All right, I have been stirring this thing without my gloves on for an hour, on and off between working on other things, eating a quick bite of lunch, making some yard work plans with the kids. And now it's time to see how everything turned out. First of all, I love how this color looks right now in the dye vat. This is not how it's going to look in the end. It always looks darker in the dye vat. You got to remember, a lot of this is going to get rinsed out and then washed out in the final steps here. But wow, this looks amazing so far. The kids came down here and said, "What are you doing, Mom? It looks like a bucket of blood." And I was like, "Yeah, murder bucket." So that's fun. Wow, look at this color. Whew, you guys can see why I'm being careful and trying not to splash. I did get a little bit on the floor during the stirring process, but like I said, it's a stained, messed up concrete floor, so that's why I do my dye projects in here. Wow, this is going to be so cool. Oh, I can't wait to cut these things open and take a look. Is that 3 or 4? Huh, can't remember. I think that was 3, and this is number 4. I try to keep a tight count of stuff when I'm dyeing in this deep bucket because it is very easy to lose track and have something on the bottom of the bucket without even realizing it. So I think, yep, there's one more down there. Grab it out. And I believe that's everybody from this go round. So I just, squeeze as much of the dye out of it by hand as I can here. So I'm only dealing with the dye that's soaked into the fabric and not a bunch of extra. Just quick make sure. Nope, nobody else in there. All right, we'll head this over to the sink. My horrendously stained sink because of dyeing, but there you go. All right, so the beginning stages of rinsing this stuff out, there's just gonna be a lot of dye coming out here. It just, well, it's a lot. That's okay though. I like to use my bins in the sink sometimes, so I'm rinsing off the bottom of it. But I think I'm just gonna actually use the sink this time because there's not that many pieces. Normally when I do Shibori and I'm doing indigo, I've usually got, 10 to 20 pieces going that I'm working on. But this is a little bit more mellow. So first things first, I just do some rinsing with it still in its tied up form. As you can see by the color of the water in the sink, there's just a ton of dye coming out of this. And it's just gonna keep discharging dye even after I get it cut open. But just kind of the first step is get some of the extra out so I'm not dealing with quite so much when I start cutting it open. So do that first. And then after I've done that, start actually untying this thing. And I like to just leave the water running onto the rest of the stuff because all of these guys need, well, there's a lot of rinsing. This does take a lot of water. So if you live somewhere where it's a drought or something, maybe don't do this project. Will that fit there? Oh, it's like it's made for it. All right. So start releasing these things. I cut the end rubber bands. These ones are the ones I did with the really easy kind of quick, just clip them around style of hair ties. So those come off really easily. And then I usually wind up washing these so I can reuse them. They're not that expensive, but you know, why throw them away if you can reuse them, right? Ooh, look, there's a lot of dye still coming out of this. All right, I'm gonna cut this last one off, and then we will get to opening the stitching. So once the rubber bands are off, give it another look. Oh, you can see some of that red and white patterning. Oh, that's gonna look so nice. All right, so I set this up before with my little quick release with the tape on the end. So literally I just grab the two ends and then pull, break the thread, and then pull on this little piece of tape that I tied into the end of it, and that pulls right out. And then we should get, whew, I hope, a teeth pattern. It looks like it's gonna be a little bit more subtle than normal. It looks like I got a really dark red on this dye session, which was what I was going for sure. But I am a little surprised at how low contrast it seems to be between the red and the white. I don't think this is going to wash out to pink for sure. But of course we shall see. Everything is just kind of guesswork until we get to that last wash in terms of what this is actually going to look like. Man, I said quick release, and then I was trying to show you guys how easy it is to pop those stitches open and like didn't want to go. There we go. Oh, there's some more, a little bit more contrast on that part. Maybe I pulled it tighter? I'm not sure. You never know. That's the cool thing about these dye projects that I love. It's like I have an idea of how it's going to come out in the end, but I really don't know at all. And you know, that element of surprise is so cool to me. It's probably cool to you guys too, and that's why you're watching along with me here. But yeah. Oh, this looks pretty cool to me. Boy, I hope Steve likes it. Oh, he's gonna love it. Of course, each piece of fabric is a little bit different. I made 5 pieces of fabric because there's 4 actual curtains, but then I need to have some extra fabric to make some of the facings, and I like to do the little tab top curtains instead of like a long continuous sleeve, so that takes a little extra piece of fabric to do. All right, so this one is all untied now. Oh wow, look at that, you guys. That is so cool. Whoo, that is gonna look excellent. Oh, and that gets washed out. All right. So now I'm gonna cheat a little bit here and just go back into this bin and soak this guy while I work on the next one. So this is gonna be the same thing 5 times. So I think I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the unending stirring part of this, and probably cut the video out in a second and just do the rest of this off camera, since I just showed you how I do the process. So yeah, I'm going to pause the video and bring it back after I've got all 5 pieces rinsed out and ready to wash. All right. These are now undone from their bindings. I've rinsed them okay in cold water. There's still a lot of dye coming out of them, as you can see from this corner of the bin. But I'm gonna let the washing machine do the rest of the work here. So I just wanted to show you guys what these look like currently. I'm very impressed with how dark this dye color is, but again, some of this is going to wash out in the washing machine. So this is what it looks like now. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these in here. I'm actually gonna do just a cold water rinse cycle for actually 2 rinse cycles to get the rest of the excess dye out. And then, oh, it's so interesting how differently they all come out from each other. Anyhow, 2 cold water rinses and then 2 hot water wash cycles to really make sure that I'm getting all the excess dye out of these so they don't bleed anymore. Not that many people wash their curtains that often, but oh, there's some very cool patterns in there, you guys. Ooh, I love it. Oh, I can't wait to see how this comes out. Anyhow, not that many people wind up washing their curtains that often, but of course I do want to make my work be as washable as possible. And you know, nothing sucks like putting something red in the wash and having it bleed all over everything. So I always make sure to double hot wash if I'm dyeing with a dark color. Like I have experience with black. Like I said, this is my first time doing red, but I'm kind of operating on the same principles that I do when I do black dye, because red is kind of tricky in the same way. So let's let the machine do its job here and come back and check it out later. All right, this has been double washed and dried, so let's take a look at our results. Oh, loose threads always. Unavoidable. Oh, wow. Okay, this came out pretty cool. I'm really into this color, you guys. Oh, neat. Okay, so here's what it looks like fresh out of the dryer. Crinkly, obviously needs to be ironed, which is the next thing I'm going to do. Oh, this came out so cool though. Wow, look at all of that. Oh, wow. This is one of my favorite stitching patterns, you guys, because you never know what you're gonna get. But these little spaces where the folds kind of crinkled up and made these interesting little, oh, I don't know what you want to call them, junctions. It's interesting too. It looks like the red dye did a much more thorough job of dyeing the fabric than the indigo does. So the spaces, you know, this in the indigo version, the spaces between the white spaces are more, there's more texture there. This is cool though. Oh, I'm super curious to see what it looks like all flattened out and ironed up. So let's do that next and take a look at what it looks like. And there it is. All 5 pieces pressed and looking incredible. I love how this came out, you guys. Let's check this out up closer. Little action from the wind. Thanks, wind. Wow, I am loving the texture. I am loving the color. This was a great Shibori experiment that I'm gonna call a huge success. I think in the future, I would bind this part between the rows of stitching up a little tighter, just because this red dye definitely is more hardcore about finding the fabric and dyeing it a dark color than the indigo is. There's definitely more variations in that section in the indigo dye, but man, I love how this came out. Oh boy, this is going to make a very cool set of curtains. Awesome. And I love how sometimes the teeth stitching is like tiny, 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 and then other times it makes a more kind of circular pattern, and then other times you get way more of the white showing through. That's the thing I love about Shibori projects, you guys, is this variety that you get in, you know, I tied up all 5 pieces of fabric the same way, but man, they each have their own individual personalities. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this Shibori experiment. Again, I'm calling it a success, and I will be sure to make another one of these in the future because I had fun filming my whole process and not knowing how it was going to come out. All right, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there and take care. I'll see you next time.